Don't look so pathetic, Hannah. My mother's voice cut through the warm hum of the fireplace. God, you are always so desperate for handouts. It's embarrassing. We were sitting in the dining room of my family's winter lodge in Aspen. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier, and the smell of expensive pine filled the air. My grandfather, Arthur, had just handed out 3 envelopes. Inside mine was a check for $20,000. Before I could even process the number, my mother, Patricia, snatched it from my hand. She laughed. A sharp, brittle sound that made my stomach twist. "Oh, Dad, stop it," she said, waving the check like it was a piece of trash. "You know these are from your old closed account. Don't get their hopes up." My brother Jacob didn't hesitate. He wadded his check into a ball and tossed it into the roaring fire. "Good one, Grandpa," he sneered. Always with the jokes. My sister Madison giggled and did the same. I froze. I looked at Arthur. He was shaking, looking frail in his oversized armchair. But then for a split second I saw it. A tiny, almost imperceptible wink. I didn't say a word. I took the check back from the table where my mother had discarded it, folded it carefully, and slipped it into my pocket. My face was blank, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. Drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever been the only one in the room who knew the truth, but had to stay silent to survive? I want to hear your story. I didn't sleep that night. I laid the check on my nightstand and stared at it until the sun came up over the mountains, painting the snow outside a bruised purple. At 9 in the morning sharp, I walked into the local bank branch. I didn't wait in line. I walked straight to the teller, a woman named Brenda, who looked like she'd seen everything, and slid the paper across the marble counter. "I need to verify this," I said. My voice was steady but my hands were cold. Brenda adjusted her glasses. She typed. She squinted at the screen. Then she typed again. I held my breath, waiting for the laugh, waiting for her to tell me it was a prop, a joke, a piece of trash my mother was right to mock. "It's valid," Brenda said, stamping it without blinking. "Funds are available immediately. Do you want a receipt?" I stared at the little slip of paper she handed me. Current balance $20,412. The $412 was mine. The scraps I'd saved from freelance gigs. The $20,000 was Arthur's. It was real. I sat in my car in the parking lot and just looked at the receipt. It wasn't life-changing money for them. My parents spent that on wine in a good month. But for me it was oxygen and it was proof. You have to understand the math of my family to understand why this hurt so much. In the Fletcher household, money wasn't currency. It was a weapon. I grew up hearing that we were comfortable. But whenever I needed something, a laptop for design school, a tutor for calculus, the well was dry. I remember 2 years ago vividly. I was living in a basement apartment in Denver that smelled like damp earth and cat litter. I was eating instant ramen for dinner 5 nights a week, because I had to pay for my own Adobe Creative Suite licenses to keep my freelance business afloat. I asked my father, Gregory, for a small loan, just $2,000, to upgrade my graphics card so I could render 3D models faster. He looked at me over his rimless glasses and sighed. "Hannah, we can't just hand out money. You need to learn the value of $1. If you can't fund your little art hobby, maybe you should get a real job." 2 days later, my brother Jacob drove up the driveway in a brand new Range Rover. $80,000. He didn't have a job. He had a concept for a tech incubator that never hatched. When I asked my mother about it, she waved me off. "It's for his image, Hannah. Jacob needs to look successful to attract investors. It's an investment. You wouldn't understand. You don't have a business mind." That phrase, "you don't have a business mind," was their favorite cage. They used it to justify everything. They told me they were holding my grandmother's trust fund. $680,000 left specifically to me in a protected aesthetic trust, because I was too creative to manage wealth. They said they were protecting me from inflation. Sitting in that frozen car, looking at the deposit slip, the pieces clicked into place. The Range Rover, the constant vacations, the investments in Jacob's failed startups. It wasn't family money. It was my money. They weren't protecting me from inflation. They were protecting their lifestyle from my ownership. I looked at the receipt one last time. I didn't feel the relief I expected. I felt a cold, sharp clarity. They thought I was just an artist, someone who colored in the lines. They forgot that my job isn't just making things pretty. My job is noticing when a pixel is out of place. My job is seeing the structure behind the facade. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking at them as my parents. I was looking at them as a design flaw, and I was going to fix it. I drove straight to Arthur's estate. It wasn't the main lodge where the family was staying. It was his private residence. A smaller stone house set back in the woods, the one place my mother rarely visited because she said it smelled like old books and dog hair. The door was unlocked. I found him in his study, sitting by the window watching the snow fall. He didn't look frail now. He looked like a man who had been waiting. "You went to the bank," he said. He didn't turn around. "It cleared," I replied, standing in the doorway. $20,000. "Why?" Arthur turned his chair. His eyes were sharp, blue and piercing, stripped of the foggy confusion he wore around my parents. Because I needed to know if anyone in this family still had a spine. Jacob burned his. Madison burned hers. You kept yours. He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Sit down, Hannah. We don't have much time before they realize you're gone." "Saturday the trust fund," I said. "It's gone, isn't it?" Arthur sighed, a heavy sound that seemed to rattle in his chest. "I suspect so. Your grandmother left that money for you. $680,000. It was supposed to be released to you when you turned 25. Gregory told me you deferred it. He showed me emails supposedly from you saying you weren't ready." "I never sent those emails," I said, my voice cold. "I know that now," Arthur said. "But I need proof. I'm old, Hannah. But I'm not dead. I can't just accuse them without evidence, or they'll have me declared incompetent and take control of everything before I can stop them. They're already talking about power of attorney." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Patricia. "Where are you? Jacob needs that logo for his pitch deck by noon. Don't be selfish." I showed the screen to Arthur. He read it and scoffed. "Selfish? That's their favorite word for you, isn't it?" "If I don't do it, they'll cut me off," I said. "They pay my phone bill. They co-signed my lease." "Let them," Arthur said. "You have $20,000 now. You're free." I looked at the text again. Jacob needs that logo. For years I had jumped when they snapped their fingers. I had designed their holiday cards, their business logos, their vanity project websites, all for free. All while they told me my work was cute, but not a real career. I typed a reply. No. The response was immediate. 3 dots dancing angrily. Then, "Excuse me, who do you think you're talking to? You ungrateful little brat. We put a roof over your head. We feed you. You do this. Or don't bother coming to dinner." I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was the feeling of a heavy coat sliding off my shoulders. "I need you to do something for me," Arthur said, leaning forward. "I'm going to call a meeting. I'm going to tell them I want to transfer the estate early. But I need a clean financial audit of the trust fund first. I need you to be there." "They'll lie. They'll fake the documents," I said. "I know," Arthur said. A grim smile touched his lips. "And that is exactly what we're counting on." He didn't explain further, but I understood. He wasn't asking me to fight them. He was asking me to watch them hang themselves. I looked at my phone one last time. A barrage of insults from my mother. Useless. Lazy. Burden. I turned the phone off and looked at my grandfather. I'm in. The trap was simple. And that was why it was perfect. Arthur sat at his desk, picked up the phone and dialed my father. He put it on speaker so I could hear every word. "Gregory," Arthur said, his voice trembling just enough to sell the performance of a man losing his grip. "I've been thinking. I don't know how much time I have left. I want to transfer the estate to you and Patricia now. Avoid the probate taxes." I could practically hear my father salivating through the speaker. Dad, that is very wise. We can come over right now to sign the papers. Not yet, Arthur interrupted. My lawyer, Mr. Sterling, insists on a clean audit first. Just a formality. Bring the financial statements for Hannah's trust fund to his office tomorrow at noon, just to show everything has been managed properly. Once he signs off, the $20 million is yours. There was a pause. A silence so thick you could choke on it. Of course, Gregory stammered. We have all the records. We'll be there. Arthur hung up and looked at me. Now we wait. I didn't wait idly. I opened my laptop. You see, for the last decade I was the designated tech support for the Fletcher family. I set up their iPhones, configured their Wi-Fi, established their cloud storage. They never changed the passwords because they couldn't be bothered to remember new ones. They thought of me as the help, and you don't hide things from the help because you don't think the help is smart enough to understand what they're looking at. I logged into the family cloud account. It was quiet for an hour, and then the digital panic began. I watched the file sync notifications pop up on my screen in real time. It was like watching a crime scene being staged from a satellite feed. Upload. Chase_statement_template.jpg. Upload. Trust_fund_draft_docs. Upload. Trust_fund_draft_PDF. My parents were scrambling. They didn't have the records because the money didn't exist. So they were doing the only thing they knew how to do. They were manufacturing a reality that suited them. At 11:45 at night, a final file appeared. Trust_fund_PDF. I downloaded it. I opened it. To a normal person it looked perfect. It had the Chase Bank logo, the correct address, the official-looking layout. It showed a balance of $680,000. It looked legitimate. But I am not a normal person. I am a graphic designer. I spend 12 hours a day staring at typography and grid systems. To me, a document isn't just words on a page. It is a mathematical construct. I opened the PDF in Illustrator and zoomed in. 300%. 600%. 800%. And there it was. The arrogance of the amateur. This is what psychologists call the Dunning-Kruger effect. When incompetent people are too incompetent to realize how incompetent they are. My parents thought graphic design was just drawing pictures on a computer. They didn't respect the discipline, so they didn't know the rules. They had used the wrong font. J.P. Morgan Chase uses a proprietary typeface. A specific weight of San Francisco or Helvetica, depending on the year. The numbers on this statement, specifically the balance section, were in Arial. I toggled the grid overlay. The alignment was off. The 6 in $680,000 was floating 3 pixels higher than the $sign. The kerning, the space between the characters, was uneven. It was a copy-paste job. They had taken a screenshot of a real statement, erased the low number, and typed a high number over it using a default system font. It was sloppy. It was insulting. And it was exactly what we needed. I checked the file metadata. Created. Yesterday, 11:42 p.m. Application. Adobe Photoshop CS6. Author Gregory's MacBook Pro. They hadn't just lied. They had created a digital fingerprint of their crime. They were so confident in their own superiority, so sure that Arthur was senile and I was stupid, that they had handed me the murder weapon with their prints all over it. I saved the file to my external drive. Then I saved the metadata report. I looked at Arthur. They took the bait. Did they do a good job? He asked. No, I said, closing my laptop. They used Arial. Arthur smiled. See you in the boardroom. The conference room at Sterling and Finch was designed to intimidate. It was all mahogany and glass, suspended 20 floors above downtown Denver. Outside, a blizzard was raging, turning the city into a white blur. But inside, the air was still and warm. I sat in the far corner near the audiovisual cart, my laptop closed on my knees. Mr. Sterling, Arthur's attorney, sat at the head of the table. He was a man who spoke in billable hours, and right now he was silent. Arthur sat to his right, looking small in his wool cardigan, his hands trembling slightly on the polished wood. At exactly noon, the heavy double doors swung open. My parents entered like they were walking onto a yacht. Patricia was wearing a floor-length fur coat that probably cost more than my entire college education. Gregory was in a bespoke suit, shaking snow from his shoulders with an air of annoyed importance. They didn't look at me. To them, I wasn't a player in this game. I was part of the furniture, just another piece of equipment in the room. "Sorry we're late," Gregory boomed, taking the seat opposite Arthur. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded like a man who had already spent the inheritance in his head. "The roads are a nightmare, but we brought everything." He slid a thick bound folder across the mahogany table. It hit the wood with a heavy thud. "The full accounting," Gregory said, flashing a shark-like smile. "You'll be pleased, Dad. The trust fund has actually grown. It's sitting at just over $700,000. We've managed it conservatively, of course, to protect Hannah's future." Arthur didn't touch the folder. He adjusted his glasses, hands trembling just enough to sell the act. "My eyes," he muttered. "The numbers blur." "I can summarize," Patricia said, reaching for it. "No," Arthur replied, gesturing toward me. "Hannah, put it on the big screen. I want the details. Big and clear." Gregory hesitated, then relaxed. To him, I was just tech support, not a threat. "Go ahead," he said as I connected the laptop. Patricia hissed, "Don't break anything. Try not to embarrass us." "Don't worry," I said evenly. "I'm good with visuals." The document filled the 80-inch screen. $680,000. Clean. Convincing. "Everything's in order," Gregory said. Arthur leaned forward. "It looks impressive." I let the silence breathe. Then I spoke. "You always said design was just drawing. Let me show you what it actually is." I zoomed in. The balance exploded across the wall. "This 6 floats 3 pixels above the baseline," I said. "That's a drag-and-drop error." A red grid appeared. Then blue outlines. "Arial regular," I continued. "Default word font. Photoshop CS6. No font library." I overlaid green text. "And this is San Francisco. The font Chase actually uses. Different kerning, different curves. Yours is wrong." The room froze. "You didn't get this from a bank," I said. "You built it badly." Patricia shouted. "She's lying." "Let's ask the file," I said. The metadata appeared. Created last night. Application. Adobe Photoshop CS6. Author Gregory's MacBook Pro. My father went gray. "You forged a financial document," I said. "That's fraud." Patricia screamed and reached for her phone. "Call them," Arthur said calmly. He sat up now. "Steady. I asked Hannah to audit the account because I knew you stole the money. I just needed proof." Gregory whispered. "We borrowed it. For Jacob." Mr. Sterling opened his binder. "A no-contest clause," he read. "Fraud voids inheritance." He closed it. "You didn't just confess to stealing $680,000. You disinherited yourselves from a $20 million estate." Security escorted them out. Patricia grabbed my arm. "We're your family." "No," I said quietly. "I'm just the help. And the help just quit." Later, Arthur put a hand on my shoulder. "You're grieving," he said. "Clarity is expensive. It costs you your illusions." He was right. 6 months later, the lodge was sold. The money was repaid. I started my own firm specializing in forensic document analysis. Arthur and I spent Christmas in Hawaii. My mother called last week. I silenced the phone and went back to work. Competence isn't loud, but it ends things permanently.